السلام عليكم. اليوم راح نتكلم عن الميكرو كنترول مع اخوي او صديقي دانيال. فراح نتكلم ان شاء الله عن التفاصيل والاشياء المهمة والاساسيات فيها، وشنو الاستخدامات اللي راح نقدر نستخدم فيها. بيعطينا تجربة صغيرة فعلية على اللاب.
Hi, my name is Daniel. We'll be talking about the uh, TI LaunchPad, which is a type of microcontroller. It can be used for implementing all sorts of different programs for digital processing.
طبعا دانيال من الطلاب المميزين في المجموعة معاي، فإن شاء الله راح نستفيد من تجربته. والفقرة هذه للأدفانس أو طلاب الهندسة أو اللي فاهمين أكثر في الكهرباء، وإن شاء الله استفسار بتواصل معاكم وراح أعطيكم الإجابات. فراح نبدأ الحين مع دانيال. طبعا البرامج اللي نستخدمها حق اللانشباد أو الميكرو كنترول اللي هو كود كومبرسر ستوديو، اوكي، تبع شركة اللي هو الانسترومنت تاكسس انسترومنت. فهذا البرنامج وهذا واجهته طبعا كل الشغلة في كودينج او لغة السي. وكيف يحتاج فيه مخارج والمداخل، تعرف على نفس اللانشباد.
Alright, y'all. So we're using the TI LaunchPad. We said it was a type of microcontroller. What a microcontroller is basically a small computer. You can program it just like a regular computer to run any type of program you need for all sorts of applications. From something as simple to making lights flash to more complex things like reading signals like say audio, like your music players, and converting those to digital signals so they can be used for whichever electronics you're working with. So you have microcontrollers in all sorts of electronic devices, especially nowadays. Cars, cell phones, not just port. There are microcontrollers in all sorts of electronics, like both portable and other types of commercial, just like home appliances and things like that. We've already programmed this LaunchPad to do a certain program where it'll sample a voltage at one of the input pins and show on the computer what that voltage is. So some highlights of the code include programming the clock to determine how often you want to, for instance, look for user input.
We're gonna go home right after this.
That would be seen in this configuration here, which is the interface between the controller and the user. That's determined by the communication protocol. In this case, we're using UART. That's just a type of way for the controller to communicate to the computer. We've set certain strings typed in the PuTTY program on the computer to trigger certain functions, like blinking different colors of the LED on the LaunchPad, or in the case of S, triggering what's called an analog to digital converter, or ADC. That's what's going to be used to convert the voltage at the input of the microcontroller into a digital reading that the LaunchPad can then use for whichever purpose you need. Alright, so the ADC that I mentioned is an internal device within the microcontroller which converts a voltage sample or reading into the associated digital value. So that's a binary value, just ones and zeros. So in order for us to be able to read the the voltage value as something that makes sense to us, we'd have to convert it back from the ADC's reading, which you get from this function ADC get result. From this function, we get the binary value of the voltage that are read at the ADC. We store that to this variable and then use an equation to restore the ADC result back to a numerical value we can understand. We can then use a function to print out that corresponding value and then send it through UART to the connection computer so we can see it on the computer screen. Alright, we have the code finished here, but just to make sure that it's coded correctly, we first use a build function. This checks for errors, and then debug, which finally loads the program onto the LaunchPad. Alright, so this is PuTTY. This is the program on the computer that lets us look at data being sent between the LaunchPad and the computer. This prompt has come from the LaunchPad itself, so we can see that the PuTTY program was configured correctly. But to further confirm that our program works, we can test the functionality first by changing the color of the LED on the LaunchPad, and then by testing the sampling ability of the LaunchPad. Okay, so we'll run the program, and you can see that the lights blinking on the LaunchPad, and when I press different colors corresponding to the red, green, and blue colors in the LED, it should change the color on the LED. So let's see. First try G for green. It's green now. And try B for blue. It's blue. Alright, so now let's test our more complex code, the voltage sampling. So press S to sample voltage. We currently have the voltage being fed to the LaunchPad at 0.77 volts from the power supply. So press S for sample. It says 0.78 volts, so it's around the same. It's pretty accurate. Let's try changing the voltage. Alright, at a new voltage, 1.66 volts, we press S to sample again. Also says 1.66 volts. One thing to note though is that this should not be set beyond about 3 volts because the maximum rating for the LaunchPad is 3.3 volts. Beyond that, you damage the internal components in the device. So one thing to always remember is to always check the data sheet for specific operating points of whichever electronic device you're using. You don't ever want to have to buy another one just because you didn't know what you were doing. Alright, thanks so much for y'all's time. It's been a pleasure just sharing a little bit about the TI LaunchPad and just microprocessors in general. There's all sorts of different things you can use this for. I mean, it's a small computer, so there's many different programs that you can make on the computer to a smaller extent. As long as you don't use up all the memory space, you can implement the same things on the microcontroller. So good luck in your future projects. Maybe I'll make something cool that we'll be talking about over here someday. And it's been a pleasure.
Thank you brother. God bless you. شاكر لكم مشاهدة وإن شاء الله الإفادة. وأي استفسار تواصل مع الخاص وإن شاء الله راجع لكم على مشاريع ثانية. وبين اللقاء. السلام عليكم.